look there at the school bus situation in New York City. Jess, as always, thank you.
Thank you.
Support for WNYC comes from Shepherd Mullen, a global law firm with more than 1,000 lawyers handling corporate and employment matters, key litigation, IP, and complex financial transactions for companies in New York and beyond. More at shepherdmullen.com. Sponsoring WNYC means reaching hundreds of thousands of engaged and discerning listeners who've made our shows part of their daily routine. Find more on sharing your business message with WNYC's unique audience at wnyc.org/sponsorship.
On the next All of It, we'll continue our Get Political book series with the author of a new book called The Quiet Damage, QAnon and the Destruction of the American Family, about how conspiracy theories can harm our personal relationships. Plus, we'll discuss why New York City's water may taste slightly different. I'm Allison Stewart. Join us for All of It, weekdays at noon on WNYC.
Marketplace Morning Report is next, and later on Morning Edition, actor Stanley Tucci talks about growing up in a home that's centered around the kitchen.
Everything centered around food. It was what you talked about before you ate, is what you talked about while you were eating, and it was what you talked about after you ate.
We'll have more on that next hour. That's appetizing. Stanley Tucci there. It's 6:51. 46 and partly cloudy now, mostly sunny today and a high of 57 with a slight breeze. Then tonight, mostly clear and 42. Another chilly night for baseball in the Bronx at 7:30. Tomorrow, sunny and 55 and gusty. This is WNYC. We have delays this morning on the F train. It's 6:52.
We are your one-stop shop for winners of the Nobel Economics Prize.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Amazon Business, focused on offering smart business buying solutions, leaving time to focus on growth. More at amazonbusiness.com. And by Rubrik. When cyber attacks put businesses at risk, Rubrik provides the power to bounce back fast. More at Rubrik.com.
I'm David Brancaccio. Colonialism and different countries got different systems imposed upon them, and their social institutions evolved along separate paths. Economists studied this to try to learn which systems and institutions contribute to prosperity and which contribute to poverty and inequality. This year's Nobel Economics Prize was awarded to 3 scholars who looked into the role of institutions in economic development: James Robinson at the University of Chicago and 2 from MIT, Daron Acemoglu and Simon Johnson, whom I spoke with a few hours after he got word of his Nobel yesterday. Dr. Johnson, welcome.
My pleasure.
Congrats. When we've spoken over the years, I had thought you had Nobel written all over you. It's nice to know my hunch was right.
Well, thanks for believing in me. It came as quite a surprise to me.
Let's talk about an emerging institution that could make or break our prosperity and widen or narrow inequality. You've written in depth about technology and artificial intelligence. And we have a society that hopefully is thinking about how do we get the good out of it and keep away the bad. That, I guess, is an emerging institution that could make or break us.
Well, it's certainly, David, I think, a driver of institutions, and it's going to have a big impact on who has a good job and who doesn't going forward. It's not about stopping AI at all. I don't think you can stop technology, but it is, I think there's a lot we can do on redirecting technological progress and pushing AI and the innovators around that space towards inventing things that are more useful to people and boost the productivity of particularly people with less education, as opposed to enriching a few people who, for example, live on the West Coast of the United States and run already very big tech companies. I think these are choices that can be made. And yes, you're quite right. If we can establish some plausible, reasonable regulatory framework, that could be quite helpful.
How strong are America's democratic institutions? I remember after the great financial crisis, 2008 and 9, you talked a lot about the U.S. government being captured by the financial industry, that the industry got the rules of the game that they wanted, and that our institutions needed work. Are you still of that same mind?
I think strictly or narrowly on the financial front, David, we made much more progress after 2008 than I would have expected. Now, it's never over. There's always dangers of capture from that sector. But I think that particular front is held up quite well. Where we're in more trouble is on the impact of automation and globalization on the middle class. And what we need there is better delivery of results. More good jobs is my bumper sticker from this whole research agenda, by the way. So without more good jobs, I think we're going to continue to struggle.
They need to be more good jobs fairly soon. The idea that, okay, you'll lose your job in the prime of your working career, but maybe your grandson or granddaughter will get an awesome job in 15 years. That doesn't reinforce faith in any system.
No, that's a terrible message, David. I mean, that's actually what happened to a lot of people at the beginning of the British Industrial Revolution in the north of England, for example. The good jobs did show up 60 years later. And if you tell people that today, they're, of course, going to be very upset and look for alternatives. Now, we need to accelerate the process of creating more good jobs. And that's actually what Doron Acemoglu, my co-winner today, and David Autor, also professor at MIT, that's what we work on. That's our current big research push. How do you generate more new good jobs, tapping into new technology, not turning our back on technology at all, but harnessing the technology to make people more productive, including people who didn't go to college, for example. That, I think, is the key frontier at the moment.
Simon Johnson is the Ronald A. Kurtz Professor of Entrepreneurship at the MIT Sloan School of Management, who, along with Daron Acemoglu and James Robinson, won the Nobel Prize in Economics. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Markets S&P future are little changed at the moment. The price of crude oil is plunging today, down 5%, hovering near $70 a barrel. This after the International Energy Agency today predicted a surplus of oil ahead, especially with weakness in China. The group also said it stands ready to act if there's any supply disruption from Iran. The Washington Post is reporting that Israel's prime minister told U.S. officials if Israel hits Iran, it'll be military targets, not oil or nuclear production.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by JLL, committed to finding smarter ways to tackle business goals with commercial real estate solutions, talent retention, hitting sustainability goals, or simply helping find the place for your business to grow. JLL.com. JLL, see a brighter way. And by Palo Alto Networks. Palo Alto Networks delivers what's next in cybersecurity innovation to protect today's digital way of life. Learn more at paloaltonetworks.com. And by Clear Channel Outdoor, offering a nationwide network of billboards and data solutions that help businesses build brand awareness and influence consumer behavior. Billboardsforbusiness.com.
Alphabet Google is turning to nuclear reactors to fuel artificial intelligence systems. Alphabet is into small atomic plants that might be cheaper and of modular design, so engineers don't have to reinvent the wheel every time they design one, all within 6 years. Marketplace's Nova Safo is here with more.
Yeah, 6 years as in by 2030, and that would be speedy for the nuclear power industry. The latest reactor to come online, that was in Georgia, took about 11 years to build. And that's the promise of these smaller reactors, David, that they'll be faster to construct. And similar to how a prefabricated house is built, these so-called modular reactors can have parts built in a factory and moved on site. But this technology is in its infancy. It has to be commercially viable. And the startup Google is partnering with, called Kairos Power, says this agreement is important because it demonstrates demand. The two companies did not disclose financial details, but Google wants several nuclear reactors from Kairos by 2035. And that startup will have to meet milestones ahead of that date. So a ways to go, David, before this is reality.
Okay, Google, but Microsoft is leaning more old school atomic with a deal to restart the 3 Mile Island plant in Pennsylvania. If you want a lot of AI, you need a lot of electrons.
That is true, because AI is power hungry. It needs huge data centers, which in turn require a lot of electricity to run. If you look at it globally, David, the International Energy Agency says that over the next couple of years, data centers will consume as much power as the entire country of Japan. And Japan is the world's 4th largest economy. So you get a sense of the scale involved here. And that's why tech companies are looking at nuclear power as one solution, and that will be in combination with wind and solar energy.
All right, Nova, thank you. Physicists are going to email me saying it's not more electrons. All right. David Brancaccio, Marketplace Morning Report from APM, American Public Media.
WNYC is supported by
the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation.